Yeah. So when I'm working with women, it can be particularly difficult, especially then if they're athletically trained. Because again, so if you're doing something like endurance training, you might want somewhere between 1.2 to 1.7 grams per kilo, which again then would be 0.6 to 1.2 grams per pound. And then if you're bodybuilding, you're going to be up on the higher end, 1.8 grams to 2.2 grams per kilo plus. And that can be quite difficult, particularly as you said for women. So one of the ways to work around that is seeing where they are now and then just trying to make small changes. There's no point trying to go from 0 to 100 mile per hour overnight. And in fact, just a small increase is going to be beneficial. And if we looked at the importance of when this protein is needed, pre and post workout are both super important times. And so if you're improving a protein serving sort of post workout, say, okay, well, like within an hour or two of training, why don't we have a post workout shake? That's probably going to be the easiest way a lot of people get, an extra 30 to 40 grams of protein in, which for a female weighing 120, 150 pounds, that's a big difference.
Okay. And I asked a nutrition expert one time, and then I said, I'll just ask Jonny because I trust him more. About protein shake. It was about protein shakes because that's
Sure.
at the gym. I don't give people direct advice. I just share information, and I think that's my role. I connect them to articles, or I just bring up how important protein is, and then we have a conversation about it. And one of my guy clients who is lifting way heavier now, he mentioned, I don't think I'm eating enough protein. Maybe I should just add a protein shake after my workouts. And when I asked my friend who's a nutrition coach, and I said, what kind of protein shake would someone get if they're lactose intolerant? Because that was the question.
Okay.
And they said, I would never have a fat loss client get a protein shake or use a protein shake. And I didn't know why. Nutrition's not my thing. So I was like, I'll just ask Jonny.
Yeah. I would have followed up that question with a big why. And that's probably coming down to maybe that's coming down to calorie intake or something like that. Because again, if you're looking at protein, the thing about protein powders and protein shakes, right, is that because there are so many, you might be out there thinking like, oh my word, like which one do I choose? And especially if there's like mass gainer shakes and like extremes and all these, and America, it's far worse than it is here in terms of supplementation. But if you were to get, obviously he's lactose intolerant, so he can't have whey because whey is made of dairy. He might be able to stomach a whey isolate protein because whey isolate is very, very microfiltered and so has very, very little lactose in it. But I do believe, and in America, probably true as well, you can get a lacto-free whey protein or just go for a plant-based protein supplement to be safe. So you'd probably want a more like, because plant-based proteins are incomplete proteins, you'd want a protein powder that was a combination of two different types. So a lot of the time, if you found a vegan protein powder that was like a vegan ultimate or something, it will have some kind of silly name, but it will be because it will be made of like a pea and a soy or a pea and a rice, or it's a combination of the two. So you're going to have a much more complete amino acid profile there and a higher leucine count, which is, it's getting quite geeky now, but leucine is the main amino acid when it comes to muscle recovery and muscle building. So you want to kind of stimulate the leucine threshold, as it were. So having enough leucine in that post-workout meal. But hey, for a fat loss client, protein shakes, especially just whey protein shakes, so for people that aren't lactose intolerant, very, very low calorie per 30 grams, which is the standard serving, so per couple of scoops. Very low calorie, very high protein, and actually in the research, whey protein has been seen to be very, very appetite blunting. So if someone was to have like 2 scoops of protein with water for their meal and maybe like an apple, you're looking at a meal of sort of 250 to 300 calories that could actually keep them full for like 3 to 5 hours. So for someone looking to burn fat, it's actually a very, very effective way.
Okay, very good to know. And with this topic in mind, I've had multiple people say that they put collagen in their coffee or their drink for other reasons. Their nails grow, their hair grows a lot faster. Would that still be considered the good quality protein that they need. I think it's like 20 grams per serving. So could that count as their protein?
In terms of like adding it in, then 100%. Like I wouldn't be using collagen as like my only source.
Right, right.
And because, as you mentioned, because it's more of the building block for like skin, hair, nails, that kind of thing, it's useful for that side of things. We didn't get taught a huge amount about collagen, to be fair. Like ours was like overall protein and talking more about like whey and then food as intake. So I would always say vary your protein sources for the best bang for your buck. But if you wanted to get that collagen protein source, I would look up the amount of leucine that you were getting within that serving and see where it was at. And in terms of the amount of leucine, I'd need to look up the research again on what was optimal, but it's usually like a few grams of leucine that you would need in a certain serving in order to hit that threshold and stimulate muscle protein synthesis, which is what builds muscle tissue. Whenever people have a question about supplementation, I always tell them to go to examine.com. Have you seen it?
No.
So examine.com is a really, really fantastic website, and they do have a membership that you can sign up for, but most of their information is free. And whenever you are interested in looking at a supplement, you just type it into the search bar and it will show you a breakdown of all of the evidence, the level of evidence, in terms of like the way that the study was done, how strong it is, and the amount there are, and the magnitude of the effect and how consistency those research results are. And it'll break it all down, which is really, really useful. So you can put collagen in there, you can type any kind of supplement that people wonder about if I've not got extensive knowledge in. A lot of the time I say, look, have a look at Examine, because it'll give you a summary of the info that you need to know.
Oh, cool. I'll keep that in mind. That's awesome. Thank you. Well, those were the questions that I had. So thank you. That
No
was
worries.
perfect.
Yeah, no problem. I think to sum things up, whey protein in particular, and protein can sometimes get a bit of a bad rap. Like there are myths about like protein being damaging for kidneys and like a few other sort of myths around protein. And the kidney research is quite biased towards people who have poor kidneys. It's like, okay, if people have kidney issues, then let's not like overload their kidneys with protein. But if you're someone who has perfectly functioning kidneys, having a higher protein diet isn't going to have an adverse effect. And the whole issue around dairy is a big one as well. A lot of people are questioning whether dairy is like good for us at all. And all I'd say to people is that unless you have a definitive lactose intolerance that's been diagnosed, then you should be okay with dairy. And all the research we have in dairy in humans shows beneficial effects in their appetite, their health status, and the rest of it. But if you've gone a significant period of time without dairy in your life, you might have a small negative effect when reintroducing it, because lactase is an enzyme that's only produced necessarily, so you'll only produce it when consuming dairy.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. And so the idea of cutting something out and then reintroducing it to see how you react, and if you react badly, that means it's bad for you, is not necessarily
Not a smart move.
okay. Well,
Because
thank you
with that food group in particular, anyway, with other things maybe so, but
yeah.
I think we could talk a whole host about like intolerances and gut issues and things like that, because it's a whole separate topic. But there are a string of foods called FODMAPs which can cause certain stomach upsets, and dairy is amongst those simple sugars. And so if you've got a high combination of FODMAPs, you might be having negative gut issues, and then removing dairy might alleviate your symptoms. But it might have been just because of the total concentration of FODMAPs within your diet, not necessarily the dairy. So it can get quite complicated without outside eyes.
It sounds like it. Nutrition can get complicated. So if
Yeah.
someone really wants to take their nutrition under control and figure out exactly what they need to eat,
Mhm.
how do you work with people, or are you available? Is your team available to work with people?
Yeah, so at the moment I've got a full client list, but I've got another coach within the business who does have spaces available, and we work with people individually. on a consultation basis. You know, like this, we would have video calls with our clients regularly to talk with them about their goals and what they've been trying, and we create then an approach that's going to work for them. And we are very habit focused. So we focus on sort of where the client is now, where they want to get to, and we'll create an action plan for them that they're happy with in terms of making the steps towards change. And then we break that down into manageable chunks so that they could feel confident in completing those steps sort of every week or every fortnight, depending on how often we spoke with them. And then, yeah, we would use different assessment tools like food journals and other things. So if someone came to us, for example, and they said they had IBS-like symptoms, we would start with okay, let's look at your food intake for the week. Let's look at things, and then we would talk with them about the FODMAPs and other things that might be affecting things like stress, caffeine, sleep. And we would just basically help people keep it simple, focus on the basics, and get results. So.
Perfect. Well, I will make sure that people can find your website and stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Lucy. Always a pleasure.